Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Money Down Pod, episode number 16, the College Football Playoff Review. I am Kayvon and That is Shawn White. We are the host of the Money Down Pod, and we appreciate everybody for tuning in. Please like and subscribe to the show. It means a bunch to us. As we get going here, we'll kind of put one of those little annoying buttons that tell you to do that as we get a little bit more further along. But sometimes, since we don't have that button, we have to remind you guys. So please like and subscribe to the show. It means a ton to us. Comment on the show. We've got a really, really good comment. I'll go ahead and give you guys his name right now from Charles Veronis. Charles, if I pronounce your name wrong, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce your last name. Really interesting, deep, in-depth comment. Great stuff. Not all comments have to be this in-depth, but hey, if they are, we will answer them. And Charles, we're going to get into your comment right after we talk about the playoff, because the playoff actually leads into what you want to talk about here, which I love, by the way, because you get a lot deeper than just the average podcast or the average outline would look at. So, Shawn, let's dive right into the playoff here, man, and the college football rankings. This is the ranking right before rivalry week, so this is when a big deal happens. And finally, we have some serious news in this ranking. One, they did the right thing by finally moving Alabama out of number 2 and Ohio State there. I would have done it last week, personally, but I think they wanted to see it one more time. And with Alabama once again playing a very tough game against a good Arkansas team and Ohio State demolishing a good Michigan State team, they said enough is enough, let's go. So that's the first big thing. Second big thing is, for the first time in college football playoff history, there is a group of 5 school in the top 4 in the college football playoff if things ended today. So that's history right there. That's big. Will it end up that way? We don't know. They still have to play Houston. And even if they go undefeated, I don't know. But those right off the bat are the 2 biggest things that I think both were warranted. Your thoughts?
Yeah, both were warranted. That Bama move needed to happen for sure. I mean, if we're going by eye test, like they seem to do a lot of, Ohio State's a better team right now, just based off eye test. And I've been very critical of Ohio State so far on these shows, but Ohio State's came out and proved me wrong 2 straight weeks now on the spread side of things. I thought they'd win, but they've been absolutely beating the doors off of people so far. So that's one thing that's happening with Ohio State. Bama's kind of struggling by a little bit, but it is the SEC. So I know the SEC argument is, hey, we play tougher competition, but Ohio State just played a Purdue team that's been knocking off people in the top 2 weeks ago, and then they just destroyed Michigan State, which was ranked very highly. Yeah. So Ohio State's done what they need to do eye test wise, on the field wise, to have that number 2 ranking, even if it would be kind of asinine in the end because they'd end up playing Bama or Georgia in that Bama Georgia loser kind of thing. But eye test wise, if you're going to do a ranking out and put them where they need to go, it's 2. The Cincinnati thing is interesting to me. Obviously, they deserve to be there based on the record and their uptake in play, but we're going to see if they're going to actually make it into the end. This might be the gift they're giving them, and they're just going to take it away from them here at the end of it, because I don't know if they're going to make it in. I don't know if they're going to make it in above obviously a Notre Dame team that they're putting very highly, even though Cincinnati did beat them. I'm telling you, money talks in this thing, as we'll get into. So Notre Dame, I don't know, that might could jump them. Oklahoma State obviously has a path that they went out because they're up to 7 now, so they have the shot to get in. It's going to be really interesting to see who that 4 slot belongs to, because the Michigan-Ohio State thing is going to work itself out. As long as if Michigan was to win and beat Ohio State, as long as they don't lose to Wisconsin in the championship, they're in. So that's where the chaos would come in. But we're not going to see that, really. These things always end up playing out the non-chaotic way, really. I believe we're going to get Ohio State in there, Georgia in there for sure. And then those other 2 are going to be kind of a toss-up about what they want to do with the 2-loss Bama and what they're going to do with the Cincinnati side of it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's the holiday season, man. I'm here for giving. I'm here for sharing. I'm here for being kind. I'm not here for ripping the souls of Cincinnati's, whether you think it's fair or not. Like, if that's their game plan, I would have just rather them if I was a Cincinnati fan. And Cincy fans out there, tell me, am I wrong? Are you happy to know, like, if this was the situation, if you knew at the end of the season you went undefeated that you're going to not be in the top 4, but at least you got a couple of days or a week or 2 weeks in there right now, is that good for you? Or would you rather have just stayed at that 5th spot and never actually had that true vindication of knowing, okay, you made it to the top 4, but you're never actually going to play in the college football playoff? Because if it's me and their whole goal is to have Notre Dame jump them, which I think is the worst precedent they could ever possibly set, or have Oklahoma State jump them if they run out, or even have Michigan jump them and not put in, like, because the only way Michigan would jump them is if, I mean, no one's talking about this scenario, but if Michigan lost a 3-point or a 1-point or a 2-point game to Ohio State, and that would make them a 2-loss team. So no, that never mind. I was thinking that would keep them 1 loss. I keep forgetting they lost to Michigan State, so that wouldn't be possible. If they were to beat Ohio State and go in, Ohio State would fall out, and if Oklahoma State wins out, would they put in a Michigan and an Oklahoma State over Cincinnati? I don't know. I personally think that since they put Cincinnati in at 4, I think they're telling us if Cincinnati wins out, they think decently of Houston. I think Cincinnati's in. I'm going to go on the record and say that right now. I really believe that they did that, and they're not going to, at the end of the day, just rip their souls out. I think that they put them in there to show, Cincinnati, we believe in you. We don't love your resume, but we like it enough to put you at number 4. You've also had some things go your way, i.e. Oregon. It's yours to take, and it's also yours to lose.
See, I think it's actually just, I think what it does is it guarantees that they're in if Bama loses to Georgia. That's what I think.
Oh, yeah. No. That's the caveat there. Obviously.
So I think they're in automatically like that. Yeah. I think it's real shaky still if Bama was to upset Georgia, because Georgia's in no matter what.
No. Bama, you're right. If Bama upsets Georgia, that's over. That Cincinnati has to be cheering for Georgia like they were cheering for Utah last weekend.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because, I mean, if you go Bama beating Georgia, you got Bama, Georgia, Ohio State's most likely in. So you're looking at those 3. Then that 4th team, I mean, it's going to be real close. I don't know if they're going to – at that point, it's just going to be a cash cow kind of thing. Do you want to jump them with – I mean, if you get the 1-loss Oklahoma State team, do you do that? I mean, I think it would have to be Oklahoma State at this point, because the committee just doesn't like Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But that's still a 1-loss team out there. That's the thing. The thing that I find most interesting is if everything happens the way we're thinking it is, and Bama does lose to Georgia and they're a 2-loss team, I think that does automatically get Cincinnati in. That 4th team is the interesting one. Do they put the 2-loss Bama team in over that 1-loss possibly Big 12 team, or that 1-loss Notre Dame team? Do they have the balls to do something like that? Because the committee, they're in control of it, so you never know. That's where it gets real dicey, is that 2-loss Bama scenario.
See, I think that Notre Dame, I think they're putting it up there because Notre Dame has a huge fan base, and this is all about money. So Notre Dame, knowing that they can watch these Tuesday night shows, knowing they're moving up and up and up, I just don't think Notre Dame has a shot at all. And this is why, man. Even if Cincinnati did lose, you're still looking at a Notre Dame team with 1 loss and a Cincinnati team with 1 loss. Then you have to factor in the head-to-head. No, Cincinnati beat Notre Dame, and I get it. They're going to say, well, Cincinnati's schedule's weak and all that. Who the hell did Notre Dame beat? I mean, they beat Wisconsin. Now that's a really good team. But when they beat Wisconsin, Wisconsin was in shambles. It was not a good team. Like, I know that everyone's going to say, obviously, they're going to jump them at that point. But if you're trying to look at it in a fair way, in my opinion, I just don't see how Notre Dame really has a true shot at this unless total chaos happens and all of these teams lose. I think the real argument comes down to Oklahoma State, because not only has Oklahoma State won every game other than Iowa State, that Iowa State game came down to the final drive, first of all. Second of all, they have throttled teams. Other than the first couple of games in the season when they were barely getting by, they're like Ohio State now. Now, they're not winning in that type of fashion, but they are throttling teams left and right when these other teams like Alabama, I understand the competition's different, is having tougher time. And I think the committee respects that, and I think they like that. And I think Oklahoma State has a real shot at getting in if they win out. I really do.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Oklahoma State's going to be in even over an undefeated Cincinnati team. That's
I
my
think
thought
that
about it.
could be the one thing. They really
I
could
mean,
because of the way they're playing.
yeah, they just don't want to leave off powerful Power 5 teams like that. That's just not what the committee does. Like I said, that's what I'm most concerned about with the Cincinnati ranking is I'm most concerned that they're just kind of throwing them a bone to end up ripping their hearts out in the end, like you were
I just
talking
think it
about,
would be.
just because I mean that's what they can do. They're the
No,
committee,
they definitely can. Yeah.
and like we said, we talked about head to head earlier in the year after the first rankings came out with the whole thing, and then immediately they flipped it with the Michigan State ratings the week after. I mean, they kind of make up their own rules. They don't really have a set of rules that they follow or a point system that they go beside. It's just 13 guys in a committee, and they all decide on what's going to happen. And I don't think the Power Five is just really. I mean, they're the Power Five is just the dominant group of it. I don't think the rest of the schools are out there represented in the playoff committee. You don't have Cincinnati having an overhead AD fighting for them, banging the table for them. It's not like that at all. They have a smaller stadium. They have a smaller TV draw. They're a fun story, but in the end, this is about making money on TV, and it's a playoff. It's a 4-team playoff. If you can get bigger fan bases into it, that's what ESPN and the college football playoff is going to do. That's why we need to go to 12 really bad to keep for stuff like that from happening. But I mean, that's just how it is. If Oklahoma State, I swear, if they get in one loss, that's the possibility. If they win out, I think they're in.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. And everyone at home that doesn't understand that, you guys have to understand, this is not a TV this is a money show. This is a money show. This is entertainment. They are doing whatever they can to make money. And we all get that Cincinnati might not be a draw, but I just think that it sets a terrible precedent. I'm looking at it in the long run. They would have to change to a 12-team playoff tomorrow, like the next day, if they leave an undefeated Cincinnati team out, unless Alabama loses to Georgia. That's the one way where I can say, unless Georgia loses to Alabama. That's the one way where I can sit there and say, all right, Cincinnati, you really don't have – you have an argument, but you don't have that great argument anymore because they're not putting you over a one-loss Bama team that just beat one of the best teams we've seen in a long, long time. They're also not putting you over a one-loss Ohio State team, and they're obviously not putting you over a one-loss Georgia team. So if that's the case, they're out. But other than that, I just think that for precedent-wise, and I get it, it has nothing to do with that. It's about money. I just think this is the one year where we're sitting there saying, is it really that big of a deal if we put in Cincinnati over Oklahoma State? Maybe a lot of people tune in because they want to see the underdog. That's something we're going to have to find out. But all I know is if they don't do it, it's going to be chaos, and they're going to have to switch to a 12-team playoff immediately, which kind of brings us into Charles's question here. I'm trying to think because I want the audience to understand the question, but it's a long one. Should I read it off? Or should we just kind of...
No, I'll read it off. Go ahead. Read it off.
All right. So Charles Verona said this. Gentlemen, again, greatly appreciate your comment, Charles. And like we told you guys, we will always comment back if you have something to say. Charles says, gentlemen, you spoke a lot about Wisconsin's chances. So I wanted to see if you'd respond to this. Not a Badgers fan necessarily, but a fan of fairness and automatic bids for conferences. Capitalize. He's being serious there. And automatic bids for conference champions. With only a 4-team playoff, conferences know only their big brand names will likely get in. This year, Wisconsin could go 8-4 and still play in Big Ten title game with the tiebreaker rules and all that. The Big Ten knows then that Ohio State, for example, must win the title game in order to get into the conference playoffs. They know that. It creeps me out to think of all of this Big Ten brass and suits and powerful players sitting in their luxury boxes rooting like crazy for Ohio State or University of Michigan because millions of dollars will be lost if the Badgers win. I like to think that the refs are completely objective, But when you have this much economic incentive to prevent upsets from happening to blue bloods, it should make one uneasy. It's also lousy that these players can win a Division 1A conference and still not be able to go to the playoff. With automatic bids, players decide entrants, not voters. Every conference gets its playoff cut, and there's no need of favoritism for bigger name schools. First of all, well done, Charles. Well done. It's really well said. Some really fascinating points in there, and let's dive into it. So everything Charles said is true in terms of the perception of things, okay? Charles is not sitting here telling you guys that he fully believes that games are being fixed. He's just saying it's uncomfortable, it's uneasy to have that thought, because if you don't have that thought, you're not thinking the full picture. You're not understanding what this is about, which is what Shawn was just talking about, of the money aspect. So what Charles is sitting there is saying, Wisconsin just had one hell of a season in one of the best conferences in college football, and they're not going to get in. And not only does he not feel like they're going to get in, but he feels like they're not going to have a full, fair chance at that chance against Ohio State, because he thinks the big brasses and the Big Ten is backing Ohio State to get them in. Again, Charles is not saying that he believes that they would fix that game or anything like that. He just says, how do you not have that thought in your mind? And he's right. I will say this. I do not believe one bit that college football games are fixed. And this is why. Example A. If that was the case, Oregon would have never lost to Utah. Oregon would have never lost to Utah last week, and this is why. The Pac-12 also wants a team in. Every conference gets massive money if they get a team in. Oregon now, once again, you don't think the Pac-12 was sitting there cheering their butts off, those suits up there for Oregon to win? Of course they were, but it didn't work out. And once again, the Pac-12 is going to get left out. So for that reason alone, and again, you can't just pick that one reason. I just believe that it's there's so much more of that you can't fix games. That's just my personal belief that they're not fixed. But Charles has an overriding point that is correct, that the whole situation is sketchy because of the amount of money for such little teams. And the only way to fix this is going to be Shawn's point, and that is expanding the playoff ASAP. And Shawn, I'm going to let you touch on that, but I think Charles just hit it on the nail. How can you say it's fair to have players play their butt off and win a Division 1A conference and have to go to the damn Orange Bowl or the Citrus Bowl or some crap like that instead of go and play for a national championship? That hit the nail on the head. He's spot on. The expansion has to happen ASAP.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think the expansion is going to happen ASAP. So what we were talking about that last time, I believe they are supposed to vote on that here, mid-December? And if it passes...
They pushed it back, though, because of the Oklahoma-Texas thing really screwed things up, because now people don't want to help those schools out anymore. These other conferences don't want to, now that they're just going there, let's expand it so they have a shot at it. So it will get expanded. You're right, but I'm worried it's getting pushed back a bit.
Yeah, I think they still have to vote on it like mid-December, early January.
Yeah.
I fully believe they're going to push that through, and that's my point on the whole Cincinnati thing. I'd be real worried that they're going to be like, oh, well, see, we couldn't let Cincinnati in, but hey, the playoffs expanded.
Yeah. And that's
But on the point by Charles, again, thanks for the comment. That's just great stuff. As for the refs thing, like Kayvon was saying, I think it's hard to fully fix games. I tried to look it up, but I'm not sure. I don't know. Do Big Ten refs ref the championship game, or do they pull refs from other conferences for that? I'm not even sure. I thought they used to do that. Maybe it's just for the bowl games. But if that's the case, if you were all that worried, you just pull refs from a different conference. Like you pull the ACC's top refs to ref your Big Ten conference championship game, you know?
That's interesting.
But in the thing about the whole suits thing, you know good and well they're going to be rooting for Ohio State because they do want it in. But as Kayvon made the point, Oregon just lost out, and the Pac-12 is losing a ton of money because of that. I mean, they're already one of the lower credible schools. And I mean, the ACC was heartbroken when Clemson had their down year because they're so used to getting that paycheck. As for how it is with Wisconsin, I mean, if they won the Big Ten, they would deserve to get in. Don't get me wrong. I believe the playoff needs to be expanded to include stuff like that. That's why that 12-team playoff is so important. So you can get all these teams in that deserve to be in. I mean, Wisconsin, like I was talking about, I commented back to you from the YouTube channel. As I was talking about Wisconsin, they had a bumpy start to start the year, but now look at them. They got Braylon Allen running all over people. The defense is back in form. They hit a hot streak. That's something that we watch in the NFL every week that everyone loves about the NFL. It's about who's the hottest team going in and toward the end of the year. You can get in as a wild card in the NFL and run off and win it. Look at the Buccaneers last year. So it's hard to leave off a Wisconsin team. If they're hot enough to win the Big Ten championship, you just leave them out completely when they could be hot enough to go and win it all themselves maybe. It's all about who's hot at the moment. That's why this 12-team playoff needs to happen. I will say this, though. If that's the case, one big-time thing that I haven't brought up on here that needs to happen, the divisions have got to go. And I understand they're there for rivalries and everything, but you can keep your rivalry games when you're scheduling out. You got to get rid of these divisions. You can't have such a strong SEC West type division or the Big Ten have the Michigan State, Ohio State, all that in one division. You can't have that happen. That's why Wisconsin's getting into this championship game to start with on there. And if we're bringing all these teams in, you can't have this strength of schedule be that diverse between the groups. So that's something that really needs to be looked at when we do expand to this 12-team playoff, just to make sure the fairness and balance of schedule is there for all these teams.
No doubt. But also what has to happen is they still have to keep the conference championship as something that means something, because that's the different thing about college football. Two things. One, the regular season is extremely important. And two, conference title thing, they mean something to these schools, and they should. You win your conference. And that's why I think they need to expand it, but expand it with incentives. For example, you win your conference, you win the conference title game, you have home field advantage for round one. You get to play that game not at the freaking Mercedes-Benz Dome in Atlanta. No, Georgia plays in Georgia for that first playoff game. So then that way, because think about it this year. If we had a 12-team playoff this year, Alabama and Georgia would both be in. So what would next week's game mean? Why would they care to show off their best against each other when they're going to want to hold that and show it off in a couple weeks? So they have to do something about that. That's the one thing, and that's why I think you add the home field where, okay, if Bama beats Georgia next weekend, guess what? They're going to get to play on their field for the first round or first two rounds, whatever, they can figure that part out. But they have to add something to it where it makes it more incentive, because the one thing worrisome about the 12-team is it starts to kill some of those big-time games that we love to see. Michigan and Ohio State. If Michigan lost this game by 100, guess what? They would still be a 10-2 team, and they would still be in the playoff. That can't be okay. You know, there's got to be something different to make things still incentive. And I know Michigan, Ohio State, they would still always play each other hard because it's a huge rivalry, but you get my point of that, right? Like, I think it would be so cool to give home field advantage for a college football playoff. Like, that would be insane to have a playoff game in Athens Stadium. That would be sick. Something like that needs to happen. But the overall point of what Charles is saying is just spot on about how the way this committee, the way college football, and I'm not saying the committee exactly, the way college football has created this playoff, it really has destroyed everything but the playoff. That's what it's come to. Hey, Wisconsin, any other year before the playoff, you had you started out slow and you just had an amazing into your season. And we don't give one damn about it because at the end of the day, you're not in the playoff. Michigan, Harbaugh finally got things rolling 10-1. If they lose to Ohio State, it means absolutely nothing. That's the thing about college football right now, where it's just come so playoff centric. These other bowl games don't happen, when really last year, Florida versus Oklahoma was one of the New Year's Six bowls. That's a hell of a bowl game. But it didn't matter to Florida because Florida lost by 7 points to Alabama in the SEC title game, and there went their hopes, and Dan Mullen said, screw it. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And the home field is a great thought. I love the home field thing. I've also heard the buys thrown around, like a top
Yep.
4 buy kind of thing, which
Yep.
would make sense too. That gets you on to the next round. You don't have to play your players as hard. You don't have to worry about maybe getting upset by a lower seed toward the 12 end of it. That's a great point on that. You still got to have your regular season and championship games mean something. So I believe the buys in the home field, that definitely would tilt the favor, especially for those top end teams that want to play things like that. Where the point you make too about everything not mattering except for the top 4 teams
Yeah.
really comes into play with me being a draft nut. We don't even get to see top prospects play in bowl games anymore. They all skip them unless it's
Right.
a playoff. So I mean, you'll have top prospects actually playing their playoff games again, which would make a big difference for some of the drafting community. Keep some more eyes on you and everything. That's something important that you got to look at as well. So the 12-team playoff has to happen so that situations like this, where if a Wisconsin does upset the winner of a Michigan or Ohio State, where they can still have their season and get in. It's not all about them just ruining someone else's season to end up in a Rose Bowl game in California.
Yeah. No doubt about it, man. I completely agree. Again, Charles, it's a great point. It's a really, really good point. And you're not alone. Let's just put it that way. Again, I do not believe that games are fixed. Maybe in other sports, that's a different conversation for a different day. But college football, it would just be too hard in my opinion. But you better believe, just like you said, the suits are quietly or loudly rooting for Ohio State. The suits were rooting for Oregon. Sometimes Utah gets in the way. Hey, Wisconsin, get in the way and shut those suits up. That's what you have to do. That's the way you end it. Just beat them.
Hey, and on the fix thing too, and I know we're talking about too much money with the suits and the conferences. It's too much money in Vegas on college and NFL football to fix anything because that's where the real money's coming in from the public. So
that's a great point. That's a really, really good point. Again, Charles Veronis, great job. Clap to you. Anybody else, send out your comments. We love it. We'll dive into those questions for a long, long time. Charles, I hope we answered that question to the best, or to your statement, great statement, to the best of your abilities. To our abilities. I want to move on to Dan Mullen here. Look, everyone knows Dan Mullen got fired. He went like 43-15 in 4 seasons there, something like that, 3 seasons there. People don't think about this, man. He played Alabama, which we all talk about last year's Alabama team as one of the best teams ever. I mean, they crushed everybody. They only lost by 7 to Alabama, that team that has all of these guys playing in the first round right now, or playing in the NFL right now. They only lost by 7, man. And it's just remarkable to think about how the wheels have turned and how just they have fallen off since then. And it just points to one thing. That's the SEC. The pressure of the SEC, whether you think it's fair or not, whether Florida thinks they're realistic about their expectations or not, this is what the SEC will do to you. And when you're not fully in, you will lose your team and you will lose games in a rapid and ugly fashion. And that's what happened to Dan Mullen. This has nothing to do with Dan Mullen being a bad coach. This has everything to do with Dan Mullen lost the team because he wasn't all in himself. Whatever you guys want to say, I fully believe Dan Mullen thought he was going to get an NFL job last year. With the job he did with that Florida team, he thought that the Jets were going to give him that head coaching job. And when he didn't get that call, and when they said he wasn't ready in their mind, that hurt him. And he never beat. And I bring up that Oklahoma-Florida game. Dan Mullen said after that game, when they got smacked, if you remember that bowl game last year, Oklahoma beat them by like 30. Dan Mullen said in the press conference, like, our season ended last week when we lost to, or 2 weeks ago when we lost to Alabama by 7 points. Like, he didn't give a damn about that game. And that moment on, the team has just followed that mindset. And when you have that mindset in a tough SEC, it will collapse on you harder than you can imagine. And that's what ended up happening to Dan Mullen. And now he's out. Do I think it was a smart move by Florida? No. But do I think that they had to do it? Yes, because of how bad it got internally. Again, I don't think it was a smart move because I think he's a hell of a coach, and he has shown that. He has shown that he can win, but he's more of an X and O guy. He's not a sit and make the media happy. He pisses the media off. He pisses the media off, and he will keep pissing the media off. But he wasn't there to just no. He's an X and O guy. He's a different guy. And when you're not fully in, Shawn, it comes crashing down in the SEC as fast as you can imagine.
Yeah, for sure. I think what you're saying is definitely true. He's an X and O guy, and where his downfall is he's losing recruits left and right, and that was the nail in the coffin. He's just not a recruiter, and nobody on his staff really was either. He was letting people on the staff go.
They were paying big money for that recruiting staff too, and it wasn't. Some of these schools, they don't really pay for their recruiting staff. They were paying for that staff, and it was just bad.
Yeah, it's a very strange time in Florida because Florida, I would say, everyone thinks of Texas for high school football, but Florida and Georgia actually put out probably the most high school talent, you would say, most five-star kids at least.
Yeah.
And I mean, South Florida is like the breeding ground, but I mean, all of Florida is basically getting plucked by Bama, LSU, like all these other teams. And all three Florida schools right now are kind of in flux. Florida State can't get it together.
Yep.
Miami's probably going to fire Diaz here soon. I mean, good God, the college – I mean, the Allen High School down in South Florida, you could build your team just off South Florida players and probably dominate if you have any bit of coaching in you at all.
Yeah.
And then Florida, obviously, who's been underperforming recruiting-wise. I think what you said is completely true. I think he thought he was going to the NFL and didn't go. And once he did, he kind of lackadaisically went back about his business. Because if you looked at his team, once Trask, Pitts, and Kadarius Toney left, I think he thought, hey, these three are going. That's like my big time class. I'm going with them. Like it'll be a right off into the sunset kind of thing. And once he came back, he just wasn't all in. The players weren't all in. They were very undisciplined this year. They couldn't play defense to save their life. I mean, my God. But the funny thing is he still put up points, even with bad quarterback play most of the time and everything like that. So he definitely can call an offense. There's no doubt about it. He's an offensive guy. I think he got fired off the recruiting and just the way he handles the media. And not even the media, really. I think it's more the boosters because the boosters at Florida are very impatient. Florida kind of has this weird booster and fan base thing where they definitely overrate themselves. And I'm going to go in on y'all for a second just because, like I said, I'm a Jags fan in the NFL, so I follow a lot of your local media. I see a lot of your fan tweets and stuff. Y'all overrate yourself a lot. I mean, y'all think y'all are supposed to be winning national championships every year. You haven't done anything since Urban left. I mean, let's be real. Yeah. It's been a tumultuous, 10 years now? I mean, y'all can't get it together. So I don't want to hear it and act like y'all are supposed to be these national title contenders when Bama and all them just smoke you every year in recruiting and games and everything. It's a weird situation. They're not to the point of where they're Tennessee or Texas delusional, but they're getting to that point. They're going to need to right this ship and get a good coach in here that can recruit and also coach because this fan base will get you gone real quick. That's the case. You got to turn it around in 3 years here or else you're out the door.
Yeah, no, there's no, you're definitely right about that. There's no doubt about it. But the thing is, Dan Mullen, again, nobody came anywhere close to touching that Alabama team, and they were tied with minutes left in the fourth quarter. Like, he was doing a good job. It just, again, it came crashing down because of the recruiting and because he wasn't fully there, and it just destroyed him internally. And they don't have a very good recruiting class coming in where he could point to and say, no, look, I did this and that. That's going to be the one issue about moving forward with Florida. Whoever they bring in, and we can kind of turn this to the segment now of whether, it's all just taking guess at this point. But this is this is how shows like this make money. This is how shows get millions of viewers because people want to hear who's the next coach. And for my money, I don't care what school it is. The next coach needs to be Dave Aranda for any school. That is the top coach for me right now. What he's done at Baylor is incredible. The second is Mel Tucker. Mel Tucker's not leaving, though. For Florida, though, if it's not Dave Aranda, I'm going for Lane Kiffin. I'm going for Lane Kiffin, and this is why, Shawn. I ask a simple question when hiring a coach in college. Does that team in Athens, or if it's Arkansas hiring it, or if it's Auburn hiring it, does that team in Tuscaloosa get scared? Not scared, oh, shoot. They have to double glance when you mention a name. The Dogs, I'm not saying they would be scared of Lane Kiffin, but Kirby Smart would have to say, oh, okay, so they're going that route. Our rivals, they're going with Lane Kiffin. That's interesting. That puts a little fear. That's someone I know I have to really game plan for. In college football, you want your rival to say, dang, that's a really good hire right there. I don't like that hire. That's a good hire for them. I don't like that hire for us. Again, not saying that if they went and hired Lane Kiffin, Florida would be right up with Georgia. It's just where he could take him. And because of his play calling, because of his way of recruiting, Lane Kiffin is a really good guy for that job.
Yeah, I would definitely go for Lane Kiffin. I mean, that's who I would go after, but I think everyone should be going after Lane Kiffin. I mean, if you're trying to poach a coach that's already in somewhere Power Five, Lane and Dave Aranda are probably your guys, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Lane just the way he schemes offense, and he also can recruit. So there's your both thing you need. He'll have you turned around real quick. I mean, he took Corral, and Corral is looking amazing now. I mean, Ole Miss just runs and just dominates people on offense. So that's what he is. So he could definitely take an Anthony Richardson type, turn him into something huge down there in Florida for sure. I think Lane's going to have a lot of suitors though.
Yep.
And I believe it's going to be up to Lane too. There was the report that he might go to Miami if they let him. Do you want to go to Miami and say, okay, I can compete for nationals better here against Clemson, like where it's just Clemson in the conference? I can dominate South Florida recruiting. Do you want to go to Florida and stay in the SEC and have those SEC ties and then be like, all right, I'm going to go against Georgia each year? Or do you want to go to LSU where it's like a factory and you go up against Saban and Alabama each year? The truth is what you're saying. They need to get somebody that does put some fear into Kirby Smart and Georgia a little bit if they want to be their true rivals again. What they need is someone that's going to make the AD at Georgia do what Alabama and Saban and their AD does all the time. If you haven't paid attention and you ever notice, every time Alabama's going to have a big game, what do they do the week before? They either have a bye or they play a nobody.
Yes.
Every single time. It never fails.
Yep.
When they're going into that Auburn game a lot of times, usually they're playing like Samford or some no-name school, or they have a bye. Same thing when they go to play whatever big time from the East team they play. Same thing when they go to play Texas A&M, they try to have a bye. Whenever they play these big-time teams, they always have some small-ass school or a bye beforehand. You need to have a coach where Kirby Smart and Georgia's going, hey, we need to make sure we schedule Charleston Southern this week, so I have 2 weeks to prepare for this Florida team.
Yeah.
That's what you need as a coach at Florida, and that's what Lane provides to you. I will say, though, that, like I said, I follow these insiders. A lot of people are saying they're meeting with Billy Napier right now.
Yeah, and that's the guy I said for LSU.
So that's a big time coach too. If they can pull Billy Napier right out from under LSU, it makes you wonder what LSU's doing if they start doing that. Because if Dave Aranda goes to USC and Billy Napier goes to Florida, I don't know what LSU's doing because Mel Tucker's staying in Michigan State. And if LSU's the one that gets left with the second tier coach out of this group, it's kind of strange because in my opinion, they're the best job out of the group. I mean, maybe you don't want to go against Saban every year. Is that the thing? But, I mean, recruiting-wise, you're going to dominate at LSU. Money-wise, you dominate at LSU. So I find that very strange. But like you said, Lane might be trying to just get to Florida no matter what, and that's who I would go after if I was Florida.
Same. Yeah, I completely agree with your thoughts on LSU there. If that's the case, I don't know what they're doing. But about Billy Napier, he's been waiting for this job. He's turned down SEC jobs, ladies and gentlemen. He has turned down jobs in the SEC like Auburn for jobs like this. This is the job he's looking for. If Florida goes after him, he's taking it. This is the one where he's taking. I fully believe that. I think Lane Kiffin takes it. I don't know if Mario Cristobal takes it. I think Mario Cristobal is going to go to Miami. I think
that makes sense to me.
That's the one he wants. I don't think he wants to go to the SEC. There was a rumor last year when he was interviewing for the Auburn job, he dropped out because I feel bad saying this because I don't know if it's fully true, but some people that said it that are very sourced and educated in this said that he thought that Saban's playbook was just too technical and he didn't want to have to deal with that. And that's fine, man. It's Saban. It's Nick Saban. It's one of the best schools out there, right? I mean, it's one of the best coaches ever. It is the best college coach.
I mean, he hires like legit offensive coordinators every year, and then they get hired for coaching jobs.
So
that's what Saban does.
Right, exactly. So that's something that I heard. Again, might not be true, but he backed out of that job. I honestly think Cristobal should stay right in Oregon. I think that's perfect for him. Now he's going to have to get over the hump there because they're going to be waiting for it. But I could see him going to Miami. I think that will be the place he goes if he leaves Oregon. That's something we can talk about for another day, but that's something to watch. But I'm with you. Lane Kiffin, that's a home run hire for me if I'm Florida. I think Billy Napier's a good hire, and I think Dave Aranda is a home run hire.
Yeah, I have to point this out too. I mean, everyone, this is so weird for me to say because I usually just destroy this team all the time. But I actually kind of like how South Carolina's headed with Shane Beamer. They're actually on the upswing. This is going to be their least talented year they've had, and they play hard and they come out and win games.
Yep.
I mean, they pull some upsets.
Him and Sam Pittman should be the co-lead for SEC Coach of the Year right now. They both have done a great job.
So on the Florida thing, Florida better get their shit together, for lack of a better word, and get a good head coach in because, like I said, you're going to have to deal with Georgia no matter what. I mean, Kirby's got it rolling. Kirby's going to out-recruit everybody. I mean, you see all the 5 stars he has everywhere. But don't underestimate Shane Beamer and them coming up at South Carolina because they're obsessed with football too. I mean, when they had Spurrier, when they had all that, they had it rolling a few years there too. So I wouldn't be shocked. And he's staying there. Apparently, he's not taking Virginia Tech's job, which you would think if he was going to leave for any job, it would be that one to kind of follow in his family's footsteps. But if he stays there, you're going to have to deal with South Carolina up and coming too. So you're going to need to get a good coach in there if you're Florida.
No doubt about it, man. Great points there. Anything else we have to hit on here?
We're going to make one early pick. I think we're early in the week here. It's Tuesday, obviously, just after the rankings, and we like to wait. We're not like super sharp bettors that bet all their stuff early on the early lines beforehand.
We gotta wait and see how things go.
So we like to wait and see. So one line that I was interested in that I'll do for a third and short right now. I'm going to monitor it a little bit throughout the week too. But if I was putting some money down, I do like Oregon -7 on Oregon State. I don't think Oregon's the type of team that's just going to give up right away. I think they're going to want to get back hungry, and I think they're going to want to beat Utah the next week just to show, like, hey, this is not us. We lost a game we should have won and got blown out doing it, so we're going to come back and fight. I think this is their path to redemption on that because I know Thibodeau and all them ain't going to play in whatever bowl game they get into, so these last two are going to be their last two. I think they're going to try to show off. I like Oregon -7 against Oregon State.
Yep, I like that one. They better not be just all let down and, we're done, but I don't think they will. I like that one a lot. I'll have some more, but a couple right off the bat. I do like Notre Dame. Again, I had them last week. They're -16 again. I think they absolutely dominate Stanford. I like that one. I also like Arkansas -13.5. I think that's at 14 now, which kind of sucks, but they are playing Missouri. They're going to destroy Missouri. And I like NC State -6.5 against UNC at home. I think NC State's so sick and tired of hearing Mac Brown's winning and recruiting and all this stuff, but he's not doing jack on the field. Dave Doran, he's not a recruiter. I mean, he's actually a good recruiter, but he's not a Mac Brown recruiter. He's just a really good development guy. If you look at State's roster, they have guys in the NFL all over the place because he knows how to develop those guys. State's a good football team. I think they beat UNC by more than a touchdown. I like NC State at -6.5. We'll have more out later, though, but those are just right off the bat.
Yeah, being from there, that makes it so hard. It's so hard for me to pick NC State over UNC and anything because it's one of those – it's weird.
I get it.
No, there's certain types of teams that, like, it's a rivalry for one side and not the other, if you know what I mean.
Well, so for basketball, that's how it is. Football, UNC can't even sniff State stuff. I think UNC has destroyed NC State in football. I think they're just dominate NC State in football. But basketball, that it's not even a rival, but it's the opposite for football. Like UNC can't really even touch now recruiting wise, but football wise, I don't think UNC's done anything against State.
Oh no, that's the case. It's just so funny hearing like that on rivalry week for football when it's like
Those two
in
schools.
basketball like that, it's like nowhere close. And it's so weird that state lets UNC get into their head like that around that area. It's just so funny to me. I do think state will come out and treat this like the Super Bowl, like they always do. So that's a funny pick on that. It's just hard for me to pick them in general because they could come out and it could be in their head and they just choke, or they'll come out and just
But
dominate
that's
them.
not
It just
what usually happens, though.
yeah, but
They dominate UNC in football.
yeah.
I think I need to look it up here now to get the exact record. But I cannot remember when UNC really has beaten State in football. Basketball, you're right, but that's why State has to use this because they can't do anything in basketball, you know?
It's so strange. It's just a strange rivalry, in my opinion. It's just weird.
Yeah. But yeah, no doubt. But I like them at 6.5. We'll see what happens. And I do think that line goes up. So I would get that now if you like it. Other than that, Shawn, you got anything else?
No, I think we're good. We'll be back. I think so. This is going to go up Wednesday of the
Yeah.
week before Thanksgiving. We're
Yeah.
going to do our preview show for football tomorrow. We're going to record it, but I'm going to schedule that to upload on Friday. So I hope everyone has a good Thanksgiving because this will be the show you see before that. Hope you have a good time with your family. Spend some time together. Be safe out there, and just have a good holiday.
No doubt. Yeah. Appreciate you guys for listening. Appreciate everyone for tuning in, giving us comments. We appreciate all you guys do. Like, subscribe to the show. We will talk to you guys later on to break down the NFL. Have a great week. We'll talk to you then.